Okay, so here's the problem from today's notes on using the Pythagorean theorem, and then you've got some algebra incorporated in that, okay? So we know Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and c has to be your hypotenuse. And if you ever are trying to figure out which one is your hypotenuse, you need to find your right angle and then go across from that, and that side will be your hypotenuse. So for this problem, our 10 is going to go in place of the c. So we do x squared plus x minus 2 squared equals c squared, which is 10. Now, notice that I put x minus 2 in parentheses, because you're not just squaring the 2, you're squaring the whole side. So make sure you put x minus 2 in parentheses squared. Now, we can do x squared, we can do 10 squared. That's not the problem. Our problem lies in x minus 2 in parentheses squared. So go over to the side. Go over to the side and do x minus 2 squared. And what that means is you got to do x minus 2 times itself. So x minus 2 times x minus 2. And you're going to use either full or the distributive property. It's the same thing, okay? So the first thing you want to do is distribute your x to everything inside that second parentheses. So x times x gives me x squared. And then x times a negative 2 gives me negative 2x. And then you got to distribute the negative 2 to everything in the parentheses. So negative 2 times x is negative 2x. And then negative 2 times negative 2 is going to be a positive 4. Alright, so that's how you multiply those two parentheses together. And then you got to put your like terms together. So combine your negative 2x and negative 2x. So that gives you x squared minus 4x plus 4. Alright, now we did all that just to replace that x minus 2 squared in my equation over there. So now I have x squared plus x squared minus 4x plus 4 equals, and then 10 squared is 100. So just go ahead and change that 10 squared to what 10 squared is. 10 squared is 100. Alright, your next step is to combine your like terms. So I put my x squareds together. So x squared plus x squared is 2x squared. And then your next step is you want to go ahead and subtract the 100 from both sides. You want to put your constants together, okay? And you want to have it equal to 0, because when you have a quadratic, and when I say quadratic, that just means it has that x squared. When you have a quadratic equation and you're solving it, you have to have it equal to 0 first. So I'm going to subtract 100 from both sides. And so that gives me 2x squared minus 4x minus 96 equals 0. And now that it's equal to 0, the next step is to factor. And when you factor, the first thing you should look for is a GCF. So I'm going to pull out a 2 out of everything. So basically divide all your terms by 2 and have it set equal to 0 still. And then you got to factor your quadratic right there. So that's easy factoring. So I need 2 sets of parentheses. And easy factoring because their coefficient of x squared is 1, so you know you got an x and an x. And then you want the two numbers that multiply to be 48 and subtract to be 2, basically. So 6 and 8. And the 8 is the one that's negative because you want the negative 2x, okay? So if I had 6x and negative 8x, and I combine those terms, I'm going to get negative 2x. So that's why I want the 8 to be negative. And now I have 2 times x minus 8 times x plus 6 equals 0. So basically I have 3 numbers that I'm going to multiply together to be 0. So if you're going to multiply 3 numbers and get 0, one of those has to be 0. Well, the 2 cannot be 0, so we just kind of throw it out. If you let x minus 8 equal 0, then that'll give you x equals 8. So there's one solution. If you let x plus 6 equal 0, that gives you x equals negative 6. So that's 2 solutions. But actually for this problem is talking about x is the side length of a triangle. So a side length cannot be negative. So that's why we throw out the negative 6, because you can't have a length on a triangle that's negative. So you throw that out, and x equals 8 is your solution.